Councilmember Bruckman.
Present.
Councilmember Ross.
Present.
Councilmember Tapia.
Present.
Councilmember Littlewer.
Here.
Councilmember Stone. Councilmember Bloomberg.
Here.
Mayor Rotering.
Here, we have a quorum. Everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. May I have a motion to approve the minutes of the regular city council meeting held July 15th and the closed session of the regular city council meeting held on July 15th, 2024?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the minutes are approved. May I have a motion to approve the warrant list?
So moved. Second.
Any comments or questions on the warrant list? Hearing none, will the clerk please call the vote?
Councilmember Bruckman.
Aye.
Councilmember Ross.
Aye.
Councilmember Tapia.
Aye.
Councilmember Littlewer.
Aye.
Councilmember Bloomberg.
Aye.
Mayor Rotering.
Aye, 6 ayes, no nays. The warrant list is approved. Continuing on now to the report of the mayor. Since October 7th, 2023, the suffering of those who were murdered, wounded, displaced from their homes, and who were taken hostage in Gaza continue to weigh heavily on our minds and on our hearts. We continue to call for the safe return of all hostages and share strength and solidarity with their loved ones here in Highland Park, in Israel, and around the world. Continuing on with my report, I have 4 appointments this evening. The first is Chris Falcon, Business and Economic Development Advisory Group, appointment to chair for the term beginning July 30, 2024 through December 31st, 2026. Stephanie Kirch, Business and Economic Development Advisory Group, appointment to vice chair for the term beginning July 30, 2024 through December 31, 2026. William Thompson, Transportation Advisory Group, for the term beginning July 30, 2024 through December 31, 2026. Danielle Floss, Transportation Advisory Group, for the term beginning July 30, 2024 through December 31, 2026. I'm seeking concurrence from the council on these appointments. Do I have your concurrence? Yes, thank you. And we thank them for their volunteerism on behalf of our community. We have no proclamations this evening. I have no other business this evening, and we have no business from the council, so at this time
I have business from the council.
Oh, we do have business from the council. Thank you, business from the council.
Thank you. I'd like to make a statement tonight about the liquor license amendment, which is not on our agenda tonight. In order to change the city's local ordinance to allow liquor license holders to serve as local elected officials in Highland Park, this body must vote to amend the law by majority. Circumstances have changed since we voted on the ordinance in February. Since that time, Councilmember Hubler, who holds a liquor license, has resigned, and our newest member does not hold a liquor license. Hence, we would not be changing the law for one of our own, which was the concern expressed by some voting against the amendment in February. We are also now a full body of 7. This was and continues to be extremely important to our constituents. Over 300 citizen emails came to the council in support of amending, and only one opposing. And scores of residents took the time to speak during public comment over the course of months. We as a city are also facing several other very important issues, but this issue has been studied and researched extensively and could be resolved. Because of its importance to the community and the extensive financial, staff, and city council resources devoted to study the issue, including those of legal counsel, I attempted to put amending the law on the agenda again this week. The timing was important because if we did not act by tonight's meeting, this issue would need to be filed as a non-binding referendum by next Monday to be considered by voters in the next election. So now, since the liquor amendment is not on the agenda, a grassroots groups of residents must circulate petitions to pose the question at the next election as to whether a 90-year-old Prohibition-era law, which discriminates with a small d against anyone with a liquor license by preventing them from running for local public office, should remain the law in Highland Park. To be clear, under this antiquated law, you can have a tobacco shop or have a marijuana store and still sit on this dais. but you cannot own a restaurant which serves wine or a gas station that sells beer. The state of Illinois permits liquor license holders to serve in towns like ours, but adds the protection of mandatory recusal from issues involving alcohol. Hence, the public is protected. And we as a city have tightened our ethics provisions to ensure against any abuses. Yet despite these protections, this council decided it will not act on behalf of the constituents to amend an arbitrary and exclusive law, but instead will impose upon these constituents the burden of collecting thousands of signatures to get on the ballot. I'm deeply saddened that with all the challenging issues for which we need our residents to raise our voices in these troubling and frightening times, this issue needs to take up their time and energy. Assuming this measure does go to referendum, it still will be necessary for the City Council to vote to amend our liquor law. But in so choosing tonight to not act and to impose on the public the burden of getting a referendum on the ballot, we've squandered our opportunity to listen to the public and respond to their concerns as we are elected to do. The end result is that our goodwill and the public's trust in us has been squandered as well. Thank you for hearing me.
Thanks. I have a quick question for City Manager. I believe we had this on the agenda twice, once or twice, twice. So twice this was brought to the City Council, twice it was voted down. So I think it's important for the public to know
Absolutely.
that we have had those conversations on
That's
this
right.
dais twice.
But we did not have a full body group at the time. We had 6 people. We have never had a vote by a full body.
I hear what
And
you're
that's the
saying.
big
Okay.
difference. That's it. And that, coupled with the fact that we no longer have a member who technically has a conflict and therefore couldn't vote.
Okay, but I just wanted to be sure to
Absolutely
let the
right.
public know that that was the case.
That's right, Mayor.
Do you want to say
Yeah.
something? Okay.
Yeah, I don't want to repeat Councilmember Littlewar's comments simply because I agree with all of them, so that reflects my point of view. I think we had an opportunity that we have missed to really rectify what has happened for the reasons stated that we're not benefiting one of our own, which was a strong argument made by our colleagues that chose not to vote for it the last couple of times, but the context had changed. We have a new member, so there was an opportunity for the new member to consider the facts and maybe weigh in a way that might change the direction, because we were just really one vote away from being able to make a different kind of decision. So I also am worried that the reason to not address this, because we have these other more, quote unquote, more urgent issues before us to address, I think it's a poor excuse because, as council members, we got to deal with tough issues every which way. We can't choose how they come to us. We can manage them, but, we have to deal with many important things and a variety of things, including the anti-Semitism and the issues of violence that we're concerned about, of course. But we can address that and address something that has been preoccupying our citizens and our time and energy and resource quite a bit. And we had a chance to clear the deck on this one. And we know that it was an easy way to look at it. We have a way out so that we could focus more of our attention on the things that are of even more urgent importance. So I'm disappointed that, we had yet another time at the bat to maybe rectify it and do it differently, but we chose not to as a body.
And I just want to follow up by saying, obviously agendas are set by the mayor and the city manager, but we also have a provision in Highland Park that allows 3 people to ask for an item to be on the agenda. 3 people have not asked for this item to be on this agenda, even since we've welcomed our new members. So to that end, we move forward. Thank you both for your comments. I appreciate them. With that, I now hand it over to City Manager Gina Newkirk. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Next item on the agenda is business from the public. This is an opportunity for members of the public to address the city council on a topic that is within the council's purview and jurisdiction, but is not listed in another location on the agenda. If you would like to speak about a matter that is listed on the agenda, we ask that you wait until that agenda item is called, and we will give you an opportunity to speak then. If your matter is on the omnibus or consent agenda, please let us know if you would like us to remove that matter from the consolidated list so that you can speak about it. Please be aware that business from the public is not intended to be a forum for open dialogue or engagement with members of the City Council. Rather, it is intended as an opportunity to make comments to the City Council. Please do not expect a response from anyone tonight. If appropriate, questions may be directed to me as the city manager or other city staff. All comments should be directed to the City Council. All speakers will be limited to 3 minutes. We request that speakers refrain from throwing objects or using noisemakers, and that the public not applaud or make other comments after any speaker. We ask that everyone be respectful, civil, and non-repetitive. And then I can get to city manager's report as well.
Yep, that'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. So under the staff reports, just want to bring to your attention, we have 17 items that are on the omnibus agenda. There are detailed staff reports with each agenda item. All are recommended for approval. I understand one official is interested in pulling item number 2. This is a proposed agreement with Diversity Learning Solutions to conduct an organizational assessment. So Mayor, at that time, I'm happy to provide an overview of that agenda item if desired.
Great, thank you. I'm looking at Corporation Council. Do you have something you want to add? No. Okay, thank you. And with that, we will now call business from the public. If you have something you'd like to share, if not, we can continue on. Oh, thank you.
My name is Peter Mordini, 1853 Shinko Highland Park. I just want to recap on the Albion project. The city had read some stuff that Albion was trying to fix the problem, and I just wanted to recap. I have some pictures. This is going on 4 years, and I understand they put a fence for something that we did not complain about over an intake vent. So that's their reasoning for fixing this problem. And then they put a vinyl fence over a piece of vinyl over a fence, saying that would fix the noise problem. So this is like year 2 into this with those little minute things. And then they decided they said a berm. Well, that berm wasn't in place for the sound. It was built there before the project happened, which was to have trees up. And then lastly, they wanted the baffles. They did 1 row of baffles. So I just wanted to show the minimal things they did until this point. I appreciate them going through all the baffles now, but there still are 8 missing on some of the balconies. I want to thank Joe and Gita for coming over to my house to meet my family in the neighborhood in my backyard concerning the questions of the AC units. Joel made a comment about the cicadas being 88 decibels in my backyard where we met. I asked, which was very loud. I asked Gita, could you clearly hear the AC units over the cicadas? And she said, yes, I hear the sound. This is just an example of how loud the units are, as a witness by the city employees. So that just gives you an idea how they can hear over 88 decibels in our backyard trying to do this meeting, clearly hearing the AC sound. So imagine our house. Our house is like a speaker box because it comes with 40-some units into our house, and then my neighbor's house, which is 2 stories, bounces off of that and hits our house. So it's actually a little bit, it sounds odd, but a little bit louder in our house the way it reverberates because of the frequency. There's no dryers vents in the whole building, meaning they are using self-venting units that contribute to constant heat and moisture and humidity in that building, which means the AC units are cranking harder and longer to compensate this problem. That's why we hear them in the wintertime. I was here last year, 2023. The mayor said this is a priority and emergency, which I appreciate, but this is now 2024. The problem still exists. We're going on 5 years and 5 months. 5 years in the next 5 months, we're still going on this problem. The sound test was done at Highland Park. Lastly, the sound test was just done in June. Finally got some results, and also they were having problems passing the state and Highland Park level. Let's please move forward and fix this problem once and for all. Can the city and Albion unite together? Unite is the key word, like we've done in the past for the Park District with the boat launch and other problems we have, and not go through litigation. No more sound tests. Let's just get together as a community, as a team, even if we have to make members a special team or something.
So
Sad-
the timer should have gone off about 15, 20 seconds ago, but, and I understand you have more to say. Joel or Gita or Steve, can somebody talk to Mr. Mordini about next steps and how this is going to be addressed?
Yes, Mayor, yes. And we've been in communication with Mr. and Mrs. Mordini. We did share with them the recent sound test that was completed by the city's independent contractor, shared with them the different measures that Albion has been undertaking, as well as work with their acoustical engineer. And then we'll follow up in terms of next steps, just in light of the study that we shared with you on Friday.
So is that going to happen this week? Is that happening this evening? What's the timeline for
Yeah,
some
we'll follow up
sense
today
of
after the meeting and
resolution?
set a time to meet. Yes.
Okay, okay.
Yes.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you. Just a quick statement, just my wife is going through bad bouts of vertigo now because of the tossing and turning of every night. It's high in the summer times. I'm just telling you, this is the point now.
I'm so sorry. Thank you, thank you. I don't want you to leave your glasses. Thank you very much. They will be in touch, and we'll set up an appointment this week. Thank you. Any other members of the public wishing to be heard, please come forward, state your name for the record.
Good evening. Adam Nemro, resident of Highland Park. Good evening, Mayor Rotering, members of the City Council, city departments, and residents of Highland Park. I'm sure most people here tonight throughout our city have seen some of the media of what happened in our nation's capital last week when Israel's Prime Minister visited Congress and the White House. Revered statues and buildings were desecrated and defaced with threats of a terrorist organization's impending presence within our country. Heck, some even openly donned their military uniform and flag. We saw the removal of American flags outside of Union Station only to be lit on fire by those claiming that they stand for peace. Yeah, right. As I have previously mentioned, many of the organizations leading the charge in today's Jewish and American hate are fueled by anti-democratic nations, the same ones who also happily burn and stomp on our American flag, chant death to America, and illegitimately imprison Americans. Hopefully you've read the recent statement from Avril Haines, U.S. Director of National Intelligence, providing due notice to U.S. citizens regarding Iran's attempts to use social media to influence Americans' views and sow discord. Iran, the world's largest funder of terrorist organizations and oppressive regimes, most openly hater of Jews and Americans in the world, have been using their influencers and also likely bots to encourage anti-Israel and anti-Jewish protests, even providing them with financial support. In fact, Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, tweeted in May that university students in the United States were standing, quote, standing on the right side of history, end quote. This from the person whose own regime frequently jails anyone who dares speak up against his menacing will, kills women who refuse to wear a hijab, maybe the most notable by their so-called morality police, and sentences to death those who come to defense of minorities. Is this what we want the future of our America to look like in years to come? Certainly not all those who peacefully assemble are being manipulated by actors who stand against the value of our United States, but targeting innocent Jews in their homes in the middle of the night is not peaceful assembly. This is why it is critical that we remain vigilant, educate our children to the false pretenses of social media. Getting one news from unknown posters on TikTok or Instagram instead of reading an article from Reuters, the Associated Press, or other accredited news organizations is downright dangerous. This council met 2 weeks ago to begin discussing options on how to better enforce and penalize those who push the lines of free speech into hate speech, and from hate speech into an incitement of violence. I'm asking the council and your legal support to consider implementing harsher penalties and larger fines for those identified as organizing such hate marches or scripting hateful and bigoted content upon city property, and an even stiffer penalty when they enter from another location outside of Highland Park to commit such a crime. As conveyed by our own national intelligence, many of these actors are financially supported and exonerated by those who openly call for the fall of our democratic institutions. At the very least, they should be treated as more than just an accessory to the act and made to face a harsher reality. At the most, they should be made to pay a much steeper price for their blatant attacks on our freedom, safety, and institutions. Maybe it would make them think twice about returning to Highland Park, or better yet, even coming to spew their virulent hatred in the first place. Thank you.
Thank you. And we are addressing some of those issues with items 18 and 19 this evening, so welcome you staying around and hearing what we have to say. Thanks. Any other members of the public wishing to be heard?
Levi Kane. Oh, Billy Shakes hath returned to the stage yet again. Oh, what a few months it hath been indeed. The predictability of you cowards is a rich tapestry of comedic gold. Therefore, I must begin by extending my heartfelt thanks to thee for being the most contemptible base knave to grace these halls. Lo and behold, we are not burdened with yet another lawyer upon this council, but something far more insidious. A human resources specialist, handpicked by Queen Nancy Pants herself. Oh, I'm sure thou wilt perform marvelously, my dear. Wilt thou commence by taxing businesses for not displaying the proper genders upon the restroom doors? Is this thy grand progressive vision for our fair city? Is this the value thou dost bring us unto us? Better signage for the genders of our privies? Why art thou even here? Perchance thou didst think, lo, I am adept at depriving people of their livelihoods for offending the whims of the day. Let us see what other ruinous edicts I might bestow with my utterly worthless newfound companion, Nancy Rodering, the most despised mayor in all the chronicles of Highland Park's storied history. As many extend their felicitations to Bruckman, I sit in profound wonderment. I ponder why, in heaven's name, do we appoint yet more rigorous adjudicators? We require not more rigorous adjudicators to forge a flourishing local economy. Indeed, we require fewer. We already have a most esteemed legal advocate in our employ, and his name is Elrod. Hi, Elrod. He hath been chosen as the barrister for our city. Enough of this tiresome resume embellishment. What folly is this we engage in? To sit as an elected, or now an appointed official, should not be for the betterment of one's own lot in life, but for the betterment of all others. That is the very essence of this noble duty. Andres, Annette, and sometimes Yumi, only they seem to grasp this truth. What transpires with the three gestures, and now quite possibly their fourth, doth not yield any palpable fruits of fortune for our beleaguered community. Or perchance I am mistaken. Perhaps driving out the successful individuals who make thy worthless selves appear inept is simply the way the biscuit fragments. If that be so, then I do extend my heartfelt congratulations to thee. But Nancy, thou dost fix me with thine piercing gaze, beseeching all within these halls to uphold civility as though I am the malefactor? Me? Thou art the most vile, deceitful, contemptible knave I ever encountered all my days. Ne'er again cast such a baleful look upon mine eyes. Hitherto I've shown thee naught but forbearance. Tempt me not with the promise of revelry. Welcome to the masquerade of folly, Brockman. Congratulations on joining the grand charade.
Any other members of the public wishing to be heard? Hearing none? Okay, we'll continue on with our scheduled business. Items 1 through 17 have been grouped together for omnibus consideration. We'll be pulling items 2 and 5. So I'm seeking a motion to approve items 1, 3, 4, 6 through 17.
Second.
Any comments or questions on those items? Any from the public? Hearing none, will the clerk please call the vote?
Councilmember Bruckman. Aye. Councilmember Ross. Aye. Councilmember Tapia.
Aye.
Councilmember Littlewer.
Aye.
Councilmember Bloomberg.
Aye.
Mayor Rodering.
Aye. 6 ayes, no nays. Items 1, 3, 4, 6 through 17 have been approved. Item 2 is a resolution approving an agreement with Diversity Learning Solutions of Chicago, Illinois for provision of an organizational assessment. Councilmember Littlewer, you had comments or questions, or both?
A little bit of both.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. City Manager Newkirch, I was wondering if you would just go into the updating of the decision to move forward with this contract and how you spoke with and decided to move with this in light of everything that has happened in our country and in general, and how it's going to service our city and why you think it's worthwhile.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Littlewer. So included in the packet is a detailed staff report that provides some of the history that was undertaking. So we are looking for an organizational consultant to assist us with an organizational assessment. Specifically, we are looking for initiatives such as surveying our employees, which we call our internal stakeholders, for their feedback. Looking at our retention policies. What could we do better to serve our own employees? How could we look at improved attraction efforts as we look to hire new employees? looking at our personnel policies, reviewing the history of hiring practices, policies, requirements for positions. So every aspect of an organizational assessment. We have an employee working group, which consists of representatives from all departments at various levels throughout the organization. And so we had convened with them some time ago to do kind of like a mini SWOT. So what's working well in the organization, where are areas that we can improve. And we came up with a preliminary work plan, and much of those action items relayed back to these initiatives, which we eventually ended up including into a request for proposal. So as we were undertaking this work, we were also doing kind of a mirror with colleagues in other communities. And so we decided to partner with two neighboring communities, Village of Glencoe and Village of Wilmette. We found that we had many shared similarities, and so we drafted a request for proposal to undertake this organizational assessment in cooperation with them. Now, each of our organizational assessments would be done separately, but we're using economies of scale and using the same preferred recommended consultant. So we issued an RFP. We got a number of responses from consultants really around the nation. And after an interview process, we are recommending a proposed agreement with Diversity Learning Solutions, which happens to be based out of Chicago, which is wonderful. So the Village of Wilmette considered this agreement at their meeting last week, and it was unanimously approved by their corporate authorities. The contact lead at the Village of Glencoe actually left their organization to pursue another opportunity. So the consultant has agreed to a stipulation in the contract that if Glencoe participates by October 31st, they will reduce that overall cost and basically give us kind of a 3-member discount. If they don't, then the cost is reflected based on 2 communities using the same consultants. So overall, we are recommending approval and happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any further questions?
No, I think that's very helpful, and you're looking at it as an entire culture. You're not looking at certain aspects. You're looking at this for improvement in our entire employees' atmosphere for everyone.
Absolutely, right. Current employees as well as the future generation.
Great. Thank you very much for that. I appreciate it.
Thanks. Councilmember Tapia?
Yeah, many of you know that I'm in the field of diversity, equity, inclusion. So Agita and team, consulted with me as well to just look at the RFP they put out, as well as the proposals that came back to ensure that, it met the standards that I operate within at Korn Ferry. And, let's recognize that DE&I has become a flashpoint term, and there's a lot of things going back and forth. For another day, another time, happy to answer any questions just as a professional in the space. But let me say, as a city council member, I feel very comfortable with the process. I feel very comfortable with the scope. I feel comfortable with the selection, and that I feel that the flashpoints that are out there or the legitimate concerns that are out there will not come to bear within the scope of this project and within the consultant that we've hired.
Thank you. Any comments or questions from the public?
My name is Josh Weiner. I'm with the Jewish Institute for Liberal Values, and we in particular look at DEI programs and manifestations of what we call critical social justice within those DEI programs, which we do think connects directly to anti-American sentiment, potentially anti-Asian sentiment, and anti-Semitism. I do have a little bit of concern with the consultant that was selected here, in that the CEO, Pam McElvain, was quoted in an article in 2020 with the Chicago Tribune saying that there's been a shift to anti-racist strategies that incorporate topics on privilege, race relations, and systemic racism. Over the years, that type of training has helped companies ensure they're committed to diversity and inclusion, she said. When you talk about those topics, of course, they're going to be uncomfortable. Companies can't afford to walk away from this. So my specific concern comes with the fact that that seems to be an endorsement of anti-racism as a strategy that is implemented in their actual training programs. Now, I understand that what the city is trying to do is to do an assessment, I want to explain why I think anti-racism is a bit of an issue. Actually, I think a big issue and a legitimate issue in DEI training. Anti-racism sounds like the right thing. We want to be against racism. But one of the main components of anti-racism that's been implemented into DEI comes from Ibram X. Kendi, which is How to Be an Anti-Racist, his book. And in that book, he pretty much puts together a framework for the fact that all inequities are due to implicit bias and are due to essentially discrimination. And that the only way to be an anti-racist is to close those inequities down to zero, to make sure that representation in all corporate settings, all school settings, all everything match the actual representation in society. We know that Jewish people are overrepresented in society. I think we're something like 14% of Congress, but 2% of the population. And then he introduces a concept called positive discrimination, to say that it's okay to discriminate against groups who are overrepresented in society. That is highly problematic and illiberal to me. It's also illiberal because it undermines merit. It says that we should look for equity instead of merit. And it also, it looks at the systems that create these inequities and says that they are inherently racist. And that leads to anti-American sentiment. It leads to hate against Asian Americans who are overrepresented often, Indian Americans, et cetera. So again, this is what gets implemented in trainings oftentimes. I'm concerned that she has seemed to endorse this concept. I understand the city is doing an assessment, but this has also become an industry, this DEI consulting. So just be mindful that when they do an assessment, a lot of these companies do assessments to say, now we want to do an integration and this is what that looks like. It's just kind of how the business works, right? So I just want the council to really consider that before voting. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Mayor, I can address it if you'd like.
Sure.
So I do want to thank Mr. Weiner. He and I have had a couple of conversations, and then I've also shared his feedback with our colleagues in Glencoe and Wilmette as well, and completely understand that, you know, for some organizations in their attempt to be more equitable, they end up more disparaging a certain segment of, you know, people. And so that certainly is not the intent. You know, I think we definitely agree with that, and we are cautious and mindful of that moving forward. I think, you know, I give the example of this, which, you know, many years ago across municipalities. So when we took a look at job descriptions and updating job descriptions to reflect more of the requirements for the position, for example, long ago, municipalities used to have power testing that made it extremely difficult for smaller frame individuals. I work out every day, so even someone of my stature to be able to meet that power test requirement. And so you were generally having men pass those power tests and not women, for no intention, but that's just what the output happened. And so upon looking at the job descriptions and saying, well, what is really needed for the position rather than just history? Let's take a look at what these positions are actually doing. Those power test requirements came down a little bit to be more reasonable. And so with that, we started to see more, you know, women, for example, entering into these more laborious positions. So it's really making sure that, you know, job descriptions are accurate for the responsibilities that we are requiring of people, getting employee feedback as part of the process, again, looking at recruitment and retention. So completely understand the caution that has been expressed, and we will certainly be mindful moving forward.
Thank you. Any other comments from the public on this item? Any more from the council? Nope. With that, I am seeking a motion to approve item 2.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Will the clerk please call the vote?
Councilmember Bruckman. Aye. Councilmember Ross. Aye. Councilmember Tapia.
Aye.
Councilmember Littwer.
Aye.
Councilmember Bloomberg.
Aye.
Mayor Rotering.
Aye. 6 ayes, no nays. Item 2 is approved, but we appreciate your heads up, and we'll keep an eye on where things go after the assessment. And
Be happy to be involved as consultants as well, as we've expressed.
right, thank you. Thanks. Appreciate you coming by and sharing.
Because we're a nonprofit.
Thank you for sharing your input. It's really appreciated. Thank you. Item 5 is a resolution authorizing award of the 2024 Maple Avenue Storm Sewer Project contract to DeMeo Brothers Incorporated of Elk Grove Village, Illinois. Councilmember Ross.
Thank you, Mayor. Regarding the work on Maple, the storm sewer project, I don't have an issue at all with the work. I saw in the packet that we had an open house where city spoke to impacted residents, and the city tried to collect email addresses, and I immediately thought back to my experience living through a major construction project on my street. And I wondered if there is a way beyond the, open house, a systematic way to collect all, if this isn't too big a project, all Highland Park residents' email addresses and phone numbers tied to each residence, so that for future projects and emergencies, we can reach everyone as quickly as possible. I know that we're relying on not only, say an open house collecting the email addresses, but door hangers, but, those fall off of doorknobs, as I experienced with a water shutoff, and during the construction of the Central Avenue Bridge. So I'm just asking the city manager how we can do a more comprehensive collection of contact information for people, so that we aren't each time certainly people move, but we can get most of these current addresses. And I think to the school district, both school districts collect email addresses. Obviously, they can't share them with us. I know that from serving on school board. But when people are paying bills, a tax bill or whatever, are there mechanisms where the residents have to interact with the city regardless, that we can collect with their permission their information?
Mayor? Yep. Yes. Thank you. So that's a good question. So when we present the budget workshop on the capital plan, we can include a segment in there in terms of communication for capital projects, because depending on the scope of the project, there's different ways in which we do communicate. Sometimes we knock door to door, sometimes we do door hangers. Generally, overall, in addition to like open houses such as this, we do have signs out in the community that will say infrastructure improvement or public works improvement planned or underway, with an indication to check our website or contact us. And so for people traversing the area that are even interested, that's another way to do it. For the general communication such as you're talking about, we have promoted, and we're going to continue to encourage people to sign up for that rave alert system. So you can text HP alerts to a phone number. We can include it on the e-news this week. And that's another mode where we are using that to report police activity, major road closures, different things of that nature. Generally, we are asking people to sign up for our e-news. Our e-news has become the #1 source of communication for programs, services, initiatives. And we understand, it comes to your mailbox 3 times a week, but it's filled with really, I'm kind of biased, but really good information. And, you can kind of skim through it, just look through what captures your attention. But those capital projects are important for people to get updates about things like that. For these types of, and that's something, I guess, more for like, downtown district construction, that's ongoing. We want to make sure that people, are aware of different things that are happening there. For these neighborhood projects, so in addition to the open house, rave alert is an option, but we're just launching that. And so it's not yet that wildly known. And then I think the sign has been effective, where people that may miss a letter are going to see the sign in their neighborhood and say, oh, let me call the city and see what's happening in my neighborhood.
All of that does sound very helpful. It just requires an action, and it requires somebody thinking to do that, and a lot of people don't. I just wondered if in the process of paying a bill, that
The water bill.
Yeah, we do that. It's just that's not effective. So as a parent, I'm required to give my information to the school because I can't register my child without it. So when we do it on the water bills, I mean, some people do it, but, and that's where we're asking people really to sign up for the e-news. So it's not, we allow them to pay their bill without giving the information, and that's generally what happens.
I only ask this because with, many of these infrastructure projects that impact a given street, that people feel that they haven't gotten a communication about,
Even when they
pieces.
do get it, they don't think they get it.
So
Absolutely, right.
it's just trying to think of,
Right. Well, and we got a request from a property owner, if it's really important, send it certified mail. And so we've had conversations of that. I mean, that's costly. That also frustrates people because if they're not home, now they have to go to the post office to pick up their letter and they're like, oh, it's just a letter from the city. So,
I hear what you're saying. You're wanting to improve our ability to contact
Yeah.
impacted homeowners. And I think frankly, the good old days of the physical sign, this is coming, call this number, while very simple, may be the best method, but appreciate the tenor of your question.
thank you. I think half of a good portion of the frustration of any construction project that's on your street has to do with how much communication you feel.
1,000%.
Absolutely.
Thank you for raising that. With that, I am seeking a motion to approve item 5.
Second.
Any members of the public wishing to comment? Hearing none, will the clerk please call the vote?
Councilmember Brockman. Aye. Councilmember Ross. Aye. Councilmember Tapia.
Aye.
Councilmember Littlewer.
Aye.
Councilmember Bloomberg. Mayor Rotering.
Aye, 6 ayes, no nays. Item 5 is approved. Next on the agenda is other business, and these two items represent two measures that will strengthen the city's ability to respond to incidents of direct action, such as the overnight protest outside of residences. The first item is an ordinance that will prohibit picketing at any time before or about the residence or dwelling of any person within a residential district consistent with state law. In addition, no person may picket within 250 feet of any property used for residential purposes before 9 a.m. and after 8 p.m. The second measure doubles the fine for obstruction of a street or picketing. These new regulations will provide law enforcement with additional measures that can be pursued to address unlawful activity and frankly protect the peace of our community, particularly during the overnight hours. The City Council discussed these measures at length at our Committee of the Whole meeting, last meeting, actually, July 15th. I am grateful, and we are grateful, to City Manager Newkirk, to Chief Jogman, to Corporation Counsel Elrod, and to other members representing Elrod Friedman, as well as city staff, for their incredible responsiveness, thorough research, and thoughtful leadership throughout what is clearly a difficult time in our community. There are additional policy considerations that we discussed that will be presented at upcoming City Council meetings after additional research and collaboration with legal, law enforcement, and other community partners. Before we proceed to public comment on these items, on behalf of the council, I'd like to thank everyone who has taken the time to contact the city directly regarding these important issues. Over the past month, your ideas, your recommendations, your candor, your engagement have been very appreciated by everyone on the dais and by our city staff. Your concerns and suggestions have informed the policy discussions among staff and council that led to these specific measures, as well as other recommendations that are continuing to be under review. So thank you each for your time, for your effort, for your energy, and for your care of our community. We recognize that there are individuals in attendance who might want to share additional feedback on these items, and I'm happy to open the floor for public comment. Please note that the same guidelines that City Manager Newkirk discussed earlier apply to comment on these measures, including the 3-minute time limit. Please be sure to speak directly into the microphone, state your name for the record. And at this time, I'm happy to invite my council colleagues to share any comments, so we can also go to the public. Or if you're just ready for action, we can also do that. Yes.
I just wanted to say, again, thank you for everyone. It is imperative that people feel safe in their homes and neighborhoods in Highland Park. And it's critical that this ordinance acts as a deterrent under the extent of the law. So thank you, and just wanted to state that.
Great. Thank you. Councilmember Littlewer.
I do have a question with regard to the hours and time, place, and manner and other events that are held. I'm very much in favor of the additional restrictions. I like the idea of doubling the fines. I think that we're plugging up a few holes. It's a good beginning. And it's also within our purview in terms of citations and where we can really be effective. It's taking the state law to that further step from one residence, as in a Congress member's house, to the entire residential areas. So I think it's really good that we've called attention to it. But as far as the hours go, because I don't actually want to stifle the other kinds of wonderful events that we have going on, that may not be something that, you know, someone got a permit for, but a large gathering of some sort. Our vigils, for example, are those over by 8 p.m.?
City manager?
Is that okay to address it that way?
Generally, when.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
It's a very good question. So our recommendation, and Corporation Council can elaborate, so is that we not do exceptions to these. But generally, when we convene to take a look at the nuisance regulations and establish a reasonable timeframe based on the council feedback, the vigils that we've had, for example, have been outside these timeframes. So
Okay.
they, as well as, you know, even we've had vigils working with private entities that have coordinated them, they would not conflict with these timeframes. So they're doing it at a reasonable time where people of all ages can attend. And they may call it a candlelight vigil, but they may have candles, but it still may be dusk, for example.
So time, place, and manner.
More than
Corporation
that.
Council.
Yeah, and I'm glad you're using those words because Councilmember Littlewer is a lawyer, and you know this. Those of us who are lawyers learned that the First Amendment is not completely infallible. It does have exceptions to it, and the Supreme Court has built in reasonable time, place, and manner restrictions. They've also imposed on governmental bodies that are attempting to regulate speech a requirement that we narrowly tailor our regulations so that it meets a legitimate governmental goal. Our governmental goal here is quiet enjoyment in your home, the right of, in a free society, and I quoted the language from the state statute, the right of people in a free society to quiet enjoyment of their homes. So we're looking to protect residential homes. What we've done here in order to, I believe, pass constitutional muster is two things. One, in surveying laws that have attempted to have 24/7 curfews or laws that have attempted to ban picketing or protesting everywhere in town and seen how they have failed, we have done two things. One, we've put in a time restriction so that during daylight hours, it is possible to picket or protest even against non-residential uses in residential areas. Remember, we have schools and religious institutions and some
Businesses.
public institutions and
Possibly a business in a residence.
in a residential district. Those would be excluded, but then the time restriction comes into place. And even with respect to those areas, if they're in a residential district or if they're within 250 feet of a residence, there cannot be protesting in those dusk to dawn hours. The vigils, if they take place during the appropriate time period, are allowed. Also, if they take place outside of 250 feet of a residence, they would be okay. So a vigil on the front lawn of City Hall, and we've measured this, would be allowed even after the hours that are set forth in here because it's not within 250 feet of a residence. We designed this so that we're protecting our residences and we're still acknowledging that there is a right to free speech and people may not be able to protest during the day and they may need to protest or want to have the right to protest during the evening, but they're protesting away from residential areas.
And in many ways, in response to what we've seen, you've taken the state law and we've particularized it to our situation, our community, which is a highly residential community, and made sure that time, place, manner, as well as the rights of other people are still respected, but the security was your number one concern.
That's right. I took the philosophy behind the state law, but expanded it so that all of our residential areas are secure.
So it's a great start. I thank you both for a lot of work.
You bet. Absolutely. Anyone else have any comments? Councilmember Tapia?
Yeah, as the only one on the city council without Jewish heritage, I've been, my neighbors, my friends, my colleagues here mean everything to me. And, what you've gone through, for those who you are Jewish, was appalling and scary, and I'm glad that we doubled down together with legal counsel and chief of police and our citizens to really see what is the best thing to do. Again, speaking from my diversity purge, there's the legal stuff, there's the security things. I still worry about the feeling, the feeling of vulnerability. And so we're doing the right things. It's the beginning, as Councilmember Littleworth says, but, we have to be vigilant. And we have to be vigilant within the bounds of the law and the Constitution and all those things. But a lot of my energy goes into the feeling, we want our residents and our visitors to, regardless of who they are, and in this case, being Jewish, to feel safe and welcome and protected in our city. So I just wanted to state that from here.
Thank you. Councilmember Ross?
Thank you, Mayor. Just a brief statement to say I support these amendments to our ordinances, and that, as my colleagues have said, keeping our residents safe is our number one priority in Highland Park. And I know with certainty that we will stay vigilant about safety, so that if other issues arise, we're here to listen and continue to work on them. Thank you.
And I just want to thank Chief Jogman and his team for all that they've done and continue to do to maintain the highest level of public safety in the city. Their deep love for our community is clear, and we appreciate all that they're doing to make sure that everybody feels comfortable and protected. Thank you. With that, can I ask for a consolidated motion of items 18 and 19?
19, of course, is the increase of the fines and penalties.
I'll read them both. How's that? So, yeah, all right. So I'm seeking a motion to approve item 18. Oh, sure, if you want to. Go ahead. Sorry about that, Josh. Go ahead.
I mean, I'm certainly not against it, but I do want to say something about it because I did miss the last council meeting. I really appreciate this council moving relatively quickly on the time, place, and manner restrictions and doubling the citations. But I do want to address something that Councilmember Andres Tapia mentioned, which is the feeling. And I think that feeling comes from that a lot of people in the community don't feel a lot was really done in the moment about it. And there wasn't a lot of consequence for these people for what they did. And, I think there was already laws on the books that could have been enforced. And I understand, the police are in a pretty difficult position when these things happen. But one of the reasons for consequence is to deter this from happening again. And I think there was something like $40,000 of citations that could have been issued to these individuals. And that is a pretty big deterrence from it happening again. So I think, in talking with residents the day after on the block, family friends of mine that go back, my entire life, that was the biggest concern, that, our justice system is not just laws, but it's enforcement of those laws, and it's the prosecution of those laws if they should go to court. So I appreciate us, you all, really quickly addressing the laws, but I think there's a lot of concern about the enforcement and how that gets done in a proper way. And I think that feeling persists because the enforcement was not done in a way that the community feels like deterred people from coming back to do this. So I just wanted to get that out there. Thank you.
Appreciate you raising that point. I'm going to suggest that you and the chief have a conversation, just so there can be further elucidation of what the strategy was and how things moved forward. Thank you. Thanks for raising that. Thank you also for saying you wanted to speak during these items. So item 18, I'm seeking a motion for an ordinance amending Chapter 132 of the Highland Park Code of 1968 as amended regarding picketing. And item 19, a resolution amending the annual fee resolution regarding picketing and obstructing streets and sidewalks.
So moved.
Second.
Any further comments? Councilmember Bruckman.
Sorry, one more question. I just wanted to confirm that the fine increase is double, and confirm that the issuance of a violation of this ordinance under this section would it require an individual to produce identification if they were arrested or subject?
Right, yes. That's how we would issue a citation.
Right, sure, thank you.
It is double.
But they wouldn't be arrested.
Well,
It totally depends on the situation.
There's other state statutes for which arrest, this is our ordinance for which we issue fines.
And then there are other state actions that can be taken, but we're doing what we can within our purview to be able to have more
And the
teeth.
adoption of this does not preclude us from examining and determining the applicability of other state statutes or even other local ordinances.
Steve's done.
Sorry for exceeding my time.
With that, we are. Okay, so we have a motion, we have a second. Will the clerk call the vote?
Councilmember Bruckman.
Aye.
Councilmember Ross.
Aye.
Councilmember Tapia.
Aye.
Councilmember Littlewer.
Aye.
Councilmember Bloomberg.
Aye.
Mayor Rotering.
Aye, 6 ayes, no nays. Items 18 and 19 are approved. And again, thank you all. This was a long journey and a lot to talk about, and perhaps there's more to do, but at the moment, I appreciate our willingness to be bold, because we've now taken a step beyond what the state provides, and I'm pretty proud of our action. With that, I am seeking a motion to go into closed session for matters pertaining to potential litigation as well as personnel.
Motion to go into closed session for purposes of discussing personnel and, pending litigation?
Pending litigation.
Potential.
Potential litigation
same.
pursuant to 5 ILCS 120/2C1 and 11 respectively.
Is there a second?
Second.
Will the clerk please call the vote?
Councilmember Bruckman.
Aye.
Councilmember Ross. Aye. Councilmember Tapia.
Aye.
Councilmember Littlewer.
Aye.
Councilmember Bloomberg.
Aye.
Mayor Rotering.
Aye, 6 ayes, no nays. We're going into close. Thank you.